The unity, where we came from, who we are, what we believe. We once again reminded ourselves that unity teaches what the gospel of Jesus, not about him. And what does that mean? That means there's a lot of ridiculous things that have been said about him. We go right to the horse's mouth. What did he actually teach? What did he actually say? For instance, he never said, "You miserable sinners, I'm your Savior, accept me now." I'm sorry, he never said that. You know what he said? He said, "Know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And every Sunday, I tell you what, if you join this church and your life hasn't changed, either I'm not preaching it good enough or you're not practicing it. Or maybe a little of both, right? I got my own issues. And one of the greatest principles that I have learned in unity, not the easiest, but one of the greatest, is non-resistance to whatever is. Now, how many here have a life that is 100% of the time exactly as you like it? 100% of the time. Anybody here? I don't think so. But everything happens for a reason. And if we don't resist it, and just embrace it and go deeper and heal and rise up, we will be taken to a higher place where our good exists. So would you repeat with me? The way in is the way out. Together? The way in is the way out. In other words, embracing the present moment, whatever's in your face, going into it. Why is this triggering me? Will take you out of it and lift you above. And so Lent, the season of Lent, is 40 days of trying to let go of resistance to what is. Do you think you could go for even 30 days? Do I hear 5 days? How about an hour and 15 minutes? Letting go of resistance to what is. Because I don't know about you, but when I desire to be here and the universe is pulling me there, it's like, no, I want to be over there. But there's a power that's taking me over here, and I have to trust that, because the flow always takes us to our good if we don't resist it, and if we can trust it. Michael always reminds me, probably when I'm trying to control, have you ever tried to push a chain? You cannot push a chain. And that's kind of like the flow of life. It gets you nowhere and makes you very frustrated to try to control, force, and manipulate, right? Well, I found a wonderful book, 10 Poems to Change Your Life. I don't know if you like poetry or not. I haven't always been a big fan of poetry, but I like certain poetry. And this Roger Houston has taken 10 poems of 10 famous poets, and then he writes commentary on them. And if you don't understand at the beginning, you certainly do by the time he's done. And it's one of those books that opens your heart. It's absolutely beautiful. And in it, he talks about the relief that we feel, especially from the ancient mystics who were poets. The relief that our life is not all in our hands. Thank God, because I can mess things up like you wouldn't believe. That if we trust the higher power, we'll get there so much quicker. And Gurdjieff once said, we labor under the misapprehension that we have to think up what we have to do. Anybody here try to always say, what do I do now? I got to think it up. The truth is that it's not our responsibility, because the pattern of things is far greater than we could imagine. In other words, if an idea comes to you, fine, but don't struggle with it. Your higher self will take you there in the flow. And New Thought people are the hardest ones to convince of this, because we've been trained to believe that through the power of the mind we can create anything we want, and our life can be just like we want it. How's that working for you? Now, it's true, the mind is very powerful, and we do create our reality with our mind and our consciousness and our feelings and our beliefs and so much other things that are subconscious that we're not aware of. We've been told if you just desire it, think it, speak the word of it, it'll happen, and it does. It often works. I always say, be careful what you pray for. You just may get it, and then you're stuck with it, right? So you can put it out there, but then you've got to let go and trust that your higher power will take you for your highest and best, because it's not our egoic mind that has the power of creation, but our divine mind, our higher mind, our higher self that has the real power. And that higher self will always take us where it's the highest and best for our soul growth. Everybody mowing 1, 2, 3, oh God, soul growth. Just like I need more soul growth, right? But our higher self, because if I want this, I'm trying to create, and our higher self, this will give you a little better soul growth. This will strengthen something. And the Course of Love, the other day I was reading it, and I love the line that said, all the mind can really do is rearrange this reality. We call that rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. Because, this is just a dream we're dreaming. And I don't care if you want to rearrange the furniture on it, it's still a dream, and it's still not your highest and best good. So you can focus your mental power on rearranging the furniture on the Titanic, or you can let go and allow the flow of your higher self to take you to a higher place. And I don't know about you, but my life gives me constant opportunities to practice. Does your life give you constant opportunities? I know people get really irritated when they come to me for counseling, and instead of feeling sorry for them, I'll say, well, goody, now we can heal and practice the principles. It irritates people. I don't know why. But believe me, I have to do it too, and I don't like it any more than you do. As a matter of fact, the worst part of being a minister is having to practice what you preach. People always say, do you practice what you preach? I practice. Do I get it right all the time? No. So in order to bring this to home, I want to share with you, I said I'd share this week what happened to me on my vacation. And if you've heard this story, some of you have heard it more times than you care to count. So if you heard it before, just meditate while I'm giving a short version so you don't have to hear it one more time. But my son and his wife called me, and she was having a lot of medical challenges. So they asked if I'd just come out and be with them for a few days, which of course I said yes to. And the board was very supportive in saying go for it. So guess what day my ticket was? The day of the blizzard. Arizona's big snowstorm. And Michael and I were brave. He drove me all the way to the airport, and it was blowing and snowing the whole way. But I got to the airport and sat and waited, and they kept announcing we're not going to take off until the snow quits. It just didn't quit. You know that. And so finally they canceled all flights. They said no flights are going to leave Tucson today. So fine, I had to surrender. Didn't like it, but I had to surrender. So I surrendered, rebooked the flight for the next day. They couldn't get me on until the next night. So I'm already missing more than 24 hours of the time with my family. But I thought, fine, let go of resistance. So they booked me on the next night. Michael came and got me, brought me back the next day, drives me to the airport, drops me off. I'm waiting for my flight. Just as we're ready to board, they announced we're having mechanical failure. And we waited around thinking maybe they'd fix it, and finally they said, you're never going to make your connecting flight. Flight is canceled. I called up Michael, he came and got me, drove me home again for 4 times back and forth now. And then my luggage went on to California without me. Boy, I thought I had to kiss that goodbye. That was the biggest one. I had to really practice letting go. Don't resist, let go, accept. And I was beginning to think there was some man in the sky God that was messing with me. I was disappointed, but I had to keep practicing non-resistance. Accept. And even one of the passengers that I've been talking to and telling her my story looked at me and said, how can you still smile when this is the second time your flight's been canceled? She didn't know I was a minister, but I just looked at her and said, I got to practice what I preach. So finally rebooked. Now it's 4 days later than my original flight, but 3rd time's the charm. I got on the plane and had a wonderful time with my son and his wife. The moral of the story is life does give us disappointments. Sometimes when we're wanting to go one way, life takes us another. But if you accept it and don't resist, as soon as I got into resistance, I found myself suffering. And I had immediately let go of resistance. And then I would be okay. But if I went back into resistance, I would suffer. Now, it ended up perfect. I had a great flight. And the funny part of it was, Usually when I go on vacation, it takes me about 3 days to totally relax. Well, by the 4th day, I'd already been waiting in the airport for how many days, so I was already relaxed, and I arrived relaxed, and it was a very meaningful time with my family. As for the luggage that I had to practice, and of course, I had my best clothes in there, my favorite jewelry. Not that anything is worth anything that I have, but all my best stuff was in there. And I had to practice letting go that the world would not come to an end if I lost all that. But an hour before we were to drive to the airport, they called and said, "We've got your luggage, we're going to drop it off in 20 minutes. And I was able to take my first suitcase, not my second suitcase, to go to California. So letting go of expectations. Did you all come here this morning with expectations that everything would be the way you wanted it? And yet when it doesn't happen, we resist. And all that mental work doesn't always work. There is a power greater than ourselves that seems like it's messing with us some days. But that higher self is there to make sure our soul growth is happening, that we're becoming strong in our principles. I don't like it any more than you do. Now back to this wonderful book, 10 Poems to Change Your Life by Roger Houston. He said the pattern of things is there from the start. Who you are is there from the very beginning. Your task in life is to discern the pattern, listen for it, and give room for it to emerge. More commonly, though, we're all too busy trying to make things happen to make ourselves happen. Anybody here trying to make something happen? It's the natural current of your life, which may want to go one way even as you go another. This current that is often responsible for plans that seem to go awry, for the doors that refuse to open despite your persistent knocking. The same current places sudden and unforeseen circumstances and opportunities in your way. A deeper, truer life, truer to your authentic pattern, is waiting you to follow its course, except that quiet voice cannot be heard in the daily commotion. And that's where I can get into trouble. The world is so distracting, so noisy, and I can be so hard mentally trying to make things happen that I don't hear that still small voice saying, trust me, just trust me on this. Breathe, everybody breathe, accept, allow, trust the flow. I'll never forget, I think the worst time in my life, I lived out the country western song where you lost your home, your job, your spouse, and your dog. Did you ever live that out? It's very interesting. And I saw my whole life crumbling before me. I thought, well, no problem, I'll just pray and ask God to guide me. And every time I prayed, the only answer I got was let go, surrender. Boy, I didn't like that answer. But as soon as I resisted, I suffered. As soon as I said, okay, I'm just going to let go and go with it, the flow took me to a higher and better place. It took a while, it didn't happen overnight, but the flow took me to a higher and better place, and I really had to learn to trust that flow. It's not easy when I whine and cry, it's not easy, but when I surrender and accept and trust. See, we're only aware of our conscious experience. We're only aware of what we're seeing going on here right now. But there's a whole lot of subconscious stuff going on, and there's a whole lot of superconscious stuff going on that we're not aware of. In the book 10 Poems to Change Your Life, the author said the conscious self can spend many of our years assuming that it alone is the arbiter of its destiny. But our egoic self is not in charge. Our higher self is. So here's how we're going to be putting it to the test for the next few years. I don't know how many of you like astrology. If you don't, just take a nap while I'm talking about this. But for the next 7 years, Uranus is in Taurus. What that means is all the hidden subconscious stuff is going to come up. And you can experience it one of two ways. It's your choice. The first way is everything can look totally chaotic, like everything's totally out of control. And all that is not of truth will crumble. The second way you can experience it is those hidden aspects of your superconscious can be revealed. Your divinity, your light, and trusting the flow through the chaos, that it will take you higher and higher and higher. It's your choice. Can you trust that? Can you trust it? I know you want to say no. Nobody's saying yes. We're all in this together. We'll get through it together as we release and let go. Don't you want the truth of your real self to come out? Sometimes that means all the illusionary dream has to fall away. Now, to top it off, Pluto, which is the planet of transformation, is in Capricorn. And that means nothing inauthentic in you will survive. Only the authentic truth of you. So we have to trust what is, center in the Christ, listen to those promptings, and allow our life experience to lift us higher and higher. Good news, bad news, good news, bad news. It's our choice how we're going to experience it. Trusting the flow. We're really not as much in control as we think we are. Thank God. Thank God. Because I can make a real mess of it, let me tell you. Be careful what you pray for. You just might get it. Let's take it all into prayer. God, we are willing to trust. We are willing to let go and surrender to your higher flow that takes us out of this illusionary world, that takes the struggle out of rearranging all that furniture and simply allowing your light in each and every moment, in each and every experience, to take us to a place of freedom. The truth will set you free. Not your mind control, not your manipulating, not your forcing, but the truth will set you free. You are divine, you are love. You are God in expression, and all is unfolding as it should, in perfect divine order. And we say thank you, Father, my God, in the nature of the Christ, and so it is. Amen.